I did my project on the Abraham Lincoln assassination. My research question was the Confederate government involved in Lincoln's assassination? If so, how and why? If not, why not? Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by a man named John Wilkes Booth on Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. on April 14, 1865, at approximately 10:13 p.m. Lincoln was shot in the head, and Booth escaped from the scene. The nation had mixed feeling towards the loss of their president, and the feelings they had directly correlated with their political association. Tensions were high as the Civil War was recently ended, and many Southerners still supported the Confederacy, which caused them to disapprove of Lincoln's recent re-election. In order to identify if the Confederacy was ultimately responsible, we must examine closely what happened during and before Lincoln's death. First, it's important to know who was involved. First, we have the victims: Abraham Lincoln, who was the 16th President of the United States. Next, we have William Seward, who was Abraham Lincoln's Secretary of State. Next, we have the conspirators: John Wilkes Booth. He recruited Lewis Powell, David Herold, Mary Surratt, George Atzerodt, Samuel Mudd, Samuel Arnold, and Michael Allard Jr. So the timeline of Lincoln's assassination starts on March 4th, 1865, where Lincoln gives his second inaugural address. March 17th, Booth plans to kidnap Lincoln and hold him for ransom in return for Confederate prisoners. On April 9th, the Civil War ends. On April 14th, 1865, John Wilkes Booth heard Lincoln would be attending a play at Ford's Theater. He spent the day planning his attack. At 10:13, John Wilkes Booth shot Lincoln in the head and escaped with only a broken leg. At 10:15, Lewis Powell attacks Secretary of State in his home and escapes through the front door. By evening, a manhunt is on for the fugitives. The day after, Booth traveled with David Herold to Dr. Mudd's house in southern Maryland, where he gets his leg set. By early morning, President Lincoln is pronounced dead. Booth and Herold head into the direction of the Potomac River. They plan to cross into Virginia and stay with sympathetic Southerners. On Easter, preachers compare Lincoln's death to the death of Jesus Christ. Booth and Herold spend the rest of the 5 days hiding near the Potomac River in southern Maryland. Union troops come within miles of obtaining Booth, but do not capture him. On April 17th, 5 of the conspirators are arrested. Here we have Booth's route shown. He starts in Washington, D.C. and ends in Garrett's Farm. Lincoln's funeral was held on April 19th. Lincoln's funeral service was at the White House, and thousands of Americans lined the street to watch. April 20th, Booth and Herold are still at large, but Atzerodt is arrested. A $100,000 reward is offered for the fugitives. Booth sees a newspaper and is surprised by the nation's response, as he believed he would be seen as a hero. Booth and Herold attempt to cross the Potomac River into Virginia, but they get lost and remain in Maryland. On April 21st, Lincoln's funeral train departs from Washington, D.C. The train makes a 7-day trip as people mourn the loss of their president. Notice how the funeral train ride stays very northern and doesn't go into the south. This is because the Lincoln funeral train wanted to go where the sympathetic people were. Northern states held the majority of mourners, due to the fact that Lincoln was not widely supported in the South due to his outlawing of slavery. Next in our key ideas, we have that Abraham Lincoln's assassination made national news the same day it happened. This is important because something this big, spreading this fast, causes a lot of information to be spread that is incorrect. This newspaper clip happens to be correct, and it is important to note that the last sentence of the article states that it is believed that the conspirators are supporters of the Confederacy. During the Lincoln assassination, an image was printed showing Booth shooting Lincoln in the head. The image is used to seek sympathy from the American public. The American flag is in the corner, and that is used to symbolize America's involvement in the assassination and the effect that it would have on America. On April 24th, Booth and Herold head to Virginia. When they arrive, they are sheltered by a man named Richard Garrett. Authorities arrest Samuel Mudd in Maryland. On April 25th, they close in on Booth. They pursue the fugitives onto Garrett Farm. April 26th, Herold surrenders and Booth is killed. Soldiers surround Garrett Barn. Herold surrenders, Booth refuses to surrender, and troops set the barn on fire. Booth is eventually shot in the neck and dies shortly after. In the aftermath, the conspirators stand trial on May 12th. 8 defendants stand trial for Lincoln's murder, and 4 of them are sentenced to death by hanging. The other 4 are sent to Fort Jefferson in Florida. July 7th, Execution Day. In John Wilkes Booth's early life, his father was an actor who was known to have a heavy drinking problem. John Wilkes Booth was raised on a farm that had slaves. Politically, Booth joined the Know Nothing Party in the 1850s, which was known for their desire to have less immigrants into the United States. Booth strongly supported slavery. During the Civil War, Booth was a Confederate secret agent and was commonly known to meet with heads of the Confederate Secret Service. Conspiracies and the spread of misinformation. Here we have a false report in Alabama on April 19, 1865. It was reported that both President Lincoln, Secretary of State, had passed away, and that Robert E. Lee's Confederate Army had defeated Grant's Union. Obviously, this is not true, but it shows how quickly false information could be spread and posted publicly for many people to see. In conclusion, I believe it is fair to say that a lot of historians do not know that there's a lot that historians do not know about the Abraham Lincoln assassination. It is clear that Booth's actions in both his original plan to kidnap the president and his assassination attempt were fueled by his Confederate nationalism and disapproval of Lincoln's presidency. Kim Burrell highlights the collection of new evidence historians have gathered over the years regarding the Lincoln assassination. This is valuable because it shows the relevancy the assassination still has today. All in all, with Booth's clear connection to the Confederate Secret Service and his planned and aided escape, we can conclude the Confederacy is indirectly responsible for the assassination. Many people believe Booth was ordered by the Confederate leaders to assassinate the president, but this has not been substantially proven.